coming to you live from the heart of the free state of New Hampshire. This is The Independents with Carla Gericke. And now, here's your host, Carla Gericke.
Hey guys, and welcome back. I think my producer cut me off a little short there because I still wanted to do my shimmy. But welcome back to The Independents. Great to be here. It is a wonderful late fall day. It's kind of nice and sunny out there. And thank you for joining me. So, what's on the program for today? All right, the big news coming out of DC, of course, is that Thomas Massie finally passed a bill. Because the standing joke, of course, for all the years was that he has never passed a bill, but I say rather late than never, because he did indeed manage to get the Epstein Files. Looks like they're actually gonna release them. So that's big news. We have a new New Hampshire first in the crypto space, in the Bitcoin space. We just authorized our first Bitcoin municipal bond, so I'll talk a little bit about that. Give you a quick brief update on what's going on in the right-to-know landscape here in New Hampshire, and then maybe talk a little bit about Maine's gun grab. I don't know if everyone's been following that, but that is, of course, kind of disappointing. And then we'll sort of see where the day goes. But first of all, I want to, since I saw this and it's very colorful and it looks kind of cool, there will be a musical showdown here at the Chubb Theater in Concord, which is on Main Street. This is sponsored by the Concord Monitor, and this is a musical showdown that's taking place, I guess, on December 11th. So if that sounds like your jam, I'm just attracted to the whole punk aesthetic of the design here. But basically, it is a musical showdown between the Beatles and the Stones. I mean, clearly the Beatles win, right? But, you know, we can go and see what the fuss is about. All right, so let's dive straight into what is happening here. First of all, on the national level with this release of the Epstein Files. Now, of course, first of all, before we get too optimistic, the files haven't actually been released. And my prediction is that they're going to redact the crap out of it, right? And that is a problem because in the same way that with my right to know work here in New Hampshire, which is our open government advocacy, RSA 91A is our open government law, but we have great protections under the New Hampshire Constitution, Article 8. And even in that right to know work on a state level, so let's forget about federal for a second. On the state level, we're seeing the same thing we're going to see here with the Epstein Files, which is that the government is becoming more and more secretive. And to the extent they are ultimately forced to disclose things, they are just taking chunks out and redacting left, right, and center. They use the excuse of national security for too many things. National security at this stage literally means, yeah, we did it, and we're going to try and cover our tracks, right? All right, so the vote happened yesterday, and if you'd been following, you know, there's for months now been this sort of tension and drama between President Trump and Thomas Massie. Massie, of course, has kept saying, you know, Trump ran on the platform of releasing the files. Then he went through that stage where he was calling it a hoax. That was after he had met with Netanyahu. So there's some implication or some suggestion that there is maybe pressure being put on President Trump from Israel, you know, so it's got all the components of, you know, a good Saturday night spy thriller. But let's back up for a second and just talk about, you know, the original situation, right? So Jeffrey Epstein was convicted of oh, you know what? I don't actually know what the charge is off the top of my head, but he was in prison. I think it was for trafficking, although I stand to be corrected on that. And then, you know, apparently committed suicide in prison, but none of the cameras worked and it's all a little sus. Then we had the meme that came out and it was Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself. I actually think that's a tell. Like, I kind of think like maybe people were telling us he didn't kill himself, not because he was murdered, but because he's not dead. But that's sort of a side little conspiracy theory for me. Then, of course, there was Ghislaine Maxwell, who came and hid in New Hampshire, who was ultimately caught. She now also is in prison. So the question had always been, well, who were they trafficking these young women to? Now, I actually want to take a moment and just sort of correct something that we are seeing throughout social media. And I see even someone like Thomas Massie, who I have a deep amount of respect for, using the word pedophile, which I understand is being done in order to be inflammatory, right? Like there's the whole pedo theme to this. But that is not, in fact, the correct term. They are pederasts. Most of these women were 14 or older. Most seemed between like 16 and 18. Girls, really, of course, definitionally. But this isn't really a case of, you know, young children, which is a slightly different conversation, but equally creepy. So Massie actually tweeted out last night that, you know, the Republicans need to quit covering for pedophiles, put America before Israel, put farmers before corporations, quit funding wars abroad, reduce spending to control inflation, and quit attacking independent voices. And of course, that last sentence in the tweet really got to me because here on The Independents, we are trying to show everyone that this extreme between the extreme left and the extreme right is very unhealthy. It's not actually how we get things done in life. It's not even actually how life is, right? Because these are like two anchors and everyone's trying to sway between them. But most of us, the sort of independent, critically thinking folks of the world, are somewhere in the middle and kind of maybe we're a little in this camp with some stuff and a little in this camp with other stuff. So the vote took place in the House, and I believe it has passed the Senate as well. In the House, we had 216 Republicans voted for it, 2 abstained. On the Democrat side, there were 211 with 3 abstentions. And then there was 1 nay. I don't remember the actual name. I suspect it's probably just someone who didn't even mean to be cool, like Dr. Ron Paul was always known as Dr. No down in Congress because he was usually the one outlier, the one no vote. I suspect whoever voted nay here is either actually a pedophile or they just probably made a mistake, right? So sometimes those votes get really confusing because you're voting double whatever, but everyone else got it right. So that is good also to see both parties working together. That number was close to 16 in the Republicans to 11 on the Democrat side, so really nose and nose. So that shows that there is a true appetite to at least put this issue to bed. All right. What happened up in Maine, guys? So have you been following this massive gun grab that happened in Maine? It is shocking because Maine just passed a red flag gun confiscation gun confiscation law by referendum, which means it was something that was put on the ballot and got, I don't know what the threshold is in Maine, but got enough votes that government agents now have the power to target individual citizens not suspected of committing any kind of crime without due notice or without due process or previous notice to go in and seize your firearms. Now, we have seen over the years that these gun grabs have been taking place in states. You can see a clear correlation between crime going up and gun ownership going down. I know it's an unpopular thing that people don't really want to wrap their heads around, but that is the statistical truth. Here in New Hampshire, we have very, very high gun ownership, and we also have a very, very safe state. And those things are not accidental, because people who learn what the use is of firearms, right? It isn't just a tool of aggression. It can be a tool of protection, and indeed is a tool of protection. And, you know, they don't cover it, but millions, I believe it's over 2 million crimes a year in America, are thwarted because of honest gun owners. So Maine really seems to have fallen. I was talking to the Free State Project's executive director last week, and he had tweeted out, half jokingly, but I gotta say, I soft like this idea that, you know, he would only go back to Maine. He's a 3-term, retired now, but 3-term senator from Maine. And he's sort of kicked around this idea of, could we get CD2 in Maine, the non-coastal part, to actually put on referendum like they did with this gun vote, to have that district secede or leave Maine proper and become part of New Hampshire. And so I think he had initially floated that idea half jokingly, but now several years later, it's starting to look like a more appealing idea. So to those of you in Maine who are now concerned that your guns are going to get grabbed, perhaps consider either moving down a little farther south here to New Hampshire, which is so similar to Maine, or consider supporting our great former Maine Senator Eric Brakey when he tries to push this other initiative through. So, you know, basically Democrats in Augusta passed a 72-hour waiting period in what used to be one of the most pro-2A states in America. So that was back in before, but then basically here we are now. All right, what can I tell you about Bitcoin firsts here in New Hampshire? So for people who know how the crypto landscape looks in New Hampshire, this is an exciting first. But what are some of those firsts? So New Hampshire was the first state where a Bitcoin ATM or money machine was developed. That was Lamassu. Bitcoin was premiered at Free State Project events back in 2012. So there were many, many early adopters here in the state of New Hampshire. The state of New Hampshire itself has now authorized 5% a Bitcoin reserve fund, which means up to 5% of public funds in New Hampshire can be backed by Bitcoin, gold, silver, or platinum. That could be a hedge over time for us as we transition to more independence within the state, to start to try and drive things towards sound money. What is sound money? So here's a perfect example, and sadly I'm not going to remember all the numbers properly, but back in the 60s, 5 silver quarters was worth X. I'm not going to remember the number off the top of my head. And now those same silver coins, real silver, not a silver color, not like the penny that had to be decommissioned last week because it costs more to make it now than it is worth because of the dilution of the dollar, which translates to inflation, which makes us all poorer. We don't need, for example, minimum wage laws. What we need is sound money. What do you mean, Carla? Those quarters I just told you about, those 5 quarters, today would be worth just over $40. So It's because they keep printing more money and our wages don't hold up with the dilution that is happening. So you become poorer and poorer over time. So every time you hear someone ask for something that's free because the government is giving it to you, that is not free. It is why your eggs become more expensive. So we all understand, and we have all read an article sometime in our lives where you're like reading it and it's like, oh, this cost $4,000 in 1800, but it's like, $40 million, make up numbers here now. Or you read an article and they say, well, in 1980s dollars, it was this. So that's what I'm talking about. The dollar itself has lost over 97% of its value. So that means we are generationally becoming poorer. And my heart actually bleeds for the younger kids because the barriers to entry are getting harder and harder for home ownership, finding a job. Now we all have to compete against the robots. So that is frustrating as well. So that is the hedge with the Bitcoin Reserve Fund. Porcupine Real Estate, where I work for my day job, we just listed the first 3D printed house in New Hampshire that is for sale for Bitcoin. Mark Warden, my broker, is a 5-term state representative here in New Hampshire. He was the first politician to take Bitcoin donations for his campaign donations. Keith Emmon, who is now very, very active and very much pushing a lot of this legislation up at the State House. He sits on the Bitcoin, the Blockchain New Hampshire Council. And I was texting with him very early this morning because I wanted him to come on the show. But alas, he was in DC doing awesome stuff. So what is this new Bitcoin Municipal First? So it is a first municipal bond backed by Bitcoin. So the way you should think about this is basically us again here in the Great Granite State figuring out a cool way to fix a problem. So this is a first government-backed loan. So basically a municipal bond, right, is a government-backed loan where instead of selling your Bitcoin, you can use it as collateral. So a company in New Hampshire can say, all right, let's say I have $160 worth of Bitcoin and I want to borrow against that. So I want to borrow $100 against that to grow my business. So then the New Hampshire government, who already issues these municipal bonds or these loans to small businesses, can now set up a safe loan. So basically what the company does is it takes the Bitcoin as collateral, and then you can lend against X of it, but not the full value, of course, because one of the things we've all learned over the years is Bitcoin, as a fairly new asset class, is still quite volatile. In fact, I was watching Bitcoin Amsterdam was taking place, maybe that was last week, and the Bitcoin price just fell precipitously for people who keep getting in the market. And that always means everyone's like, wah, wah. But I was just listening to the guys on stage talking, and everyone is talking about Bitcoin both as the value proposition that we've understood over time, immutable, all the good things that make it a good asset class. But that volatility does make it difficult to do things. And so that volatility is built into this new municipal bond structure to make sure that that we aren't, bankrupting our business, our government to do these business loans. So the company would have to pay back the loan over time with normal interest, just like any other loan. If the Bitcoin price crashes too much, the system automatically will sell just enough Bitcoin to protect the people who lent the money in the small business loan. And then if the Bitcoin price goes up, the extra upside can actually go to to fund other loans and other stuff. This is a really big deal. And I would love to get actually Keith on here to come explain it in better terms than I just did, but this literally happened like overnight. But this is a great way to not have to pay cap gains taxes if you are holding Bitcoin. So this could be a really interesting development here in New Hampshire, which again makes it one of those universal firsts. Why are so many first things happening in New Hampshire? It is because we are attracting futurists, visionaries, innovators, builders here to the great state of New Hampshire. Why New Hampshire? Because it'll make a perfect little country, but basically because it's a small state with small or a fairly small population. It's a wealthy state. It's a safe state. It consistently ranks as the best place to live. It consistently ranks as the freest state in the United States, and it, of course, is the home of the Free State Project. The Free State Project being the movement that is truly attracting those futurists and critical thinkers to the state to try and actually show people that these ideas of freedom, free markets, the marketplace of ideas, competition, talking about issues, and keeping government small, limited, and contained at a size where we can drown it in a bathtub, as Grover Norquist used to say. Why is that important? Because when government is small and lives within its means, most people prosper. It is indeed large government giving everyone free stuff where we end up with our money stolen down to the last 3 cents on the dollar. All right. So, that is very exciting, this New Hampshire new Bitcoin first. And then I mentioned Massie passing the bill. So what happened there is the bill was filed back in July. The House passed it on November 18th, so yesterday, or if you're watching this sometime in the future, November 18th, 2025, on that 427-1 voice vote. The Senate also passed it indeed, so on the same day, it cleared by unanimous consent without debate, and then it was sent directly to Donald Trump's desk. So the bill now awaits President Trump's signature. Of course, Trump was initially hesitant, started saying it was a hoax, then flipped it. He was mad at Massie, now he's not mad at Massie. All of that is kind of happening. But if Trump signs this bill, which I am hopeful he will do, the DOJ, the Department of Justice, will have a tight timeline for compliance, and they would probably have to unveil most of those pages by early December. My prediction is they'll wait until like the day before Christmas when everyone's distracted with other things, slap out huge redactions, and then, it'll just be more murk to figure out. All right, with the last minutes remaining that I have here today, 2 right-to-know bills that are coming up. These have both been submitted. I took a look at the language. We had our Right-to-Know New Hampshire monthly meeting on Saturday. Those take place on the 3rd Saturday of the month. We are always looking for new people to join. So if you are interested in nonpartisan, open government, transparent government, forcing them to give us the information so we can figure out what they are up to, then please reach out to me at carla@carlagericke.com, and I will add you to our Right to Know group. We meet once a month. 2 hours, Zoom call, super easy. And then we try and shepherd bills through the State House and talk to you, help the press, and make sure that we have the tools in order to keep even our small local government, which is way better than DC, accountable to us, the taxpayers. Which, by the way, I was kind of peeved. I saw the NH Democrats send out a tweet who the words were siphoning off taxpayer funds to go to EFAs. And I take offense with all of those words. Siphoning off, makes it sound like somebody's taking money that is not theirs. And I'm like, taxpayers, I'm a taxpayer, I don't have kids. Do I not have a say? So framing things as if creating more educational opportunities for children is disadvantaging one group because we're trying new things, that is nonsense. Stop with that framing. All right, 10 things to do to stay healthy, as per Grok this morning. Now, shocker, it's everything your granny told you. And here is the God's honest truth. We have an epidemic of unhealth in this country, and there is nothing anyone can do for you, not from the Ozempic injections, not from where you stand on your vaccines or your flu shots. In my humble opinion, I would avoid them if I were you. But we eat too much sugar, we eat too much processed food, we eat too much junk food, you're addicted to your phones and to your doom scrolling. It is not a health landscape out there. Huge shout out, of course, always to Maha and Bobby Kennedy and our cohorts up there actually trying to do some good work. So with the last minutes I have here, I want to leave you guys with a reminder of 10 things you could be doing on the daily to keep yourself healthy. 1, sleep like it's your job. 7 to 9 hours every night. I mean, I honestly, if I get 7, I'm lucky. I wake up at 4:35 and then I'm ready to go. But try to go to bed every day at the same time. Try to wake up at the same time. Everything flows from your sleep. Your willpower, your mood, your looks, your health, all of it gets dramatically better when you stop treating your sleep like it's optional. I don't know how I only have 1 minute left, but here we go. Move your body every single day. 3, eat mostly food that has a face or grew from the ground. 4, build one deep relationship habit. Find one person in your life you want to call once a week, have that connection with, and then make it happen. Own your morning. Do good things before you start doom scrolling. Learn to say no with no explanation. Get comfortable with being uncomfortable. 8, spend less than you make always. 9, master one boring skill that compounds over time. Something like cooking, because why? Cooking whole foods nourishes you, makes you healthy. And 10, practice deliberate gratitude every day, but try and keep it private. So I am grateful today that I got that in the last minute, and I will see everyone back here again next week. Thanks, guys.